and it's changed dramatically. There are historically lots of live options, so this isn't the case. And yet, it's amazing once you give a different account of the God-world relationship, how many people haven't thought about it.
Yeah.
Then go, oh, now that that's a viable one, then what do I do with it? And anyway, so that's been kind of my initial thoughts and just how what the learnings were. Of course, I've been doing this on while in lockdown.
Yeah.
So it's like, instead of being in a lab, it's like, hey, let's talk on Zoom. So,
well, I'm sitting here thinking how few conversations I have outside my own discipline, and so how wonderful and engaging and rich it is to have this conversation with you at a different kind of level, but about the very things I'm concerned about. I mean, some of the things we were talking about earlier, and this lack of space we have in our world to be authentic humans and to ask these questions. So, yeah. Anything else you'd like to add, Tripp, about kind of what you're up to these days and kind of where you're headed?
I don't know anything specific other than the easiest thing to do is just go find the podcast, or you can go to my website and stuff, and you can find out whatever I end up doing. But I do think when I think of your work and that the church needs to dismantle things, a lot of times people hear the challenge to dismantle and then they immediately get defensive, because underneath it is the recognition that you've kind of accommodated yourself to things you can't. One of the things you mentioned, I think it was in the first half of this conversation, about students going back and doing, presentations on a family member from, a while back, be it older person they interview or they do all the research and stuff. I've been working on something for thinking about my own family. And I kind of picked it back up in 2020 during all the Black Lives Matter movement and such, and then the battle over monuments. And that kind of thing, because I went through and read all the journals of Hiram Shaw Fuller, who was a delegate to the Confederacy from Arkansas, a slave owner, a Baptist minister, a whiskey grader, based on how much he got charged, a seemingly wonderful husband and father, a sergeant throughout the war. He's a conflicted person in his own age. And there's certain things about him that are completely embarrassing, wrong, vile, and evil. And then I read diaries of his children, who only if he was one-on-one would he break rank on being the sergeant, dictator, angry one. And they find out he's extremely compassionate. And half the time he left was because he didn't want to see anyone cry, but it broke his heart to watch his kids hurt. And then I go, what does that mean? Right. And I think part of the dismantling is, as I wrestled with it, I had to make peace, right? That's part of me and I'm inheriting that. And there are real beautiful things in it. And there's just real vile, ugly things. And being honest about it is kind of necessary for me to inherit it in a beautiful way. Because I hope, if I told multiple stories of just all the costly things he did for his neighbors. Mm-hmm. Now, there are a whole lot of people he did not include in the category of neighbor he should have. Mm-hmm. But I hope I can include more, but still have the ferocious tenacity. And that's uncomfortable for me to say nice things about him, knowing what he did. But then it's also uncomfortable to say, honestly, all the problems and evil that he was connected to, because he's part of me. And when I think of that whole dismantling task, I think, one, that look in the past helps us in the present. But the other thing is, part of the dismantling is recognizing that if we win as parents, our great grandkids are going to point out stuff we were blind to in ways we were accommodated to sick, sinful, twisted systems. and what can we show them?
Yeah.
We can't show them the answers to that because we are probably blind, just like other generations have been. But we can show them that we at least learn to grow with the perspective that we have. And we can at least model what it looks like to acknowledge vile, ugly things in your past and to treasure the beautiful parts. And looking at our historical moment, it seems like you have to do one or the other, right? Give a fake version of the past so you can clap for the whole thing, or tear it down. And if you're in that space and your inheritance is complicated, then you feel like you're getting cut off from so much. And I think it's true. I thought of this because I'm thinking of my own family. But now you and I, as ministers, guess what we hear every time we talk about being Christians? The church has a very complicated past. And we're both part of the free church tradition. Yeah. And you're a Mennonite. My dad's the bumper sticker on my dad's car says, when Jesus said, love your enemy, I'm pretty sure he didn't mean bomb them. So like
Mennonite.
Yes. So, I think when you sit in that space and you look back at church history, do you try to tell the story where you ignore it all? Or do you do the it's just insert, cover for whatever the big ill of the day is? I think that kind of hermeneutic of learning to acknowledge and wrestle with the ugly and receive and celebrate the beautiful is not just how we dismantle in the present, but it's also can become a model to a few generations from now when people have to do the same to us.
Yeah.
And that's that, like how you talked about earlier, that what does it mean for us to become partners with the Spirit in the work of dismantling and then raising up and bringing new things into being that are beautiful? One of the ways we can show that is doing the same with our own